Welcome to DRTSPR show. This is Dr. Tangella Shiva Prasad Reddy alias Dr. TSPR. Namaste, Adab, hello, and a great day. The victory for democracy, 15th February 2024. And I'm thankful to all viewers because DRTSPR channels has been championing the cause of electoral bonds. When government denies to provide any information on which corporate and how much money they are funding to political parties. And this is nothing but violation of the basic fundamental rights or constitution. This is what DRTSPR channels has been echoing right from the day one, because this is corruption, corrupt money engaged through electoral bonds. They are trying to elect and select such candidates and political parties again who will come to power to continue such type of bargains, whether it is unconstitutional or corrupt practices. And this is what we said, fraud vitiates everything. When you go for corruption, absolute corruption, even in the electoral bonds, electoral systems, then the survival of democracy is the biggest aspect. And that is why in independent India, if people are happy breathing free, it is because of this freedom, this equijustice, and this great constitution. And to uphold all this, we are in a people participatory constitutional democracy. We are a representative democracy. Right from Sarpanch to the Parliament Lok Sabha member, we elect them, and we have a party-based system. At the same time, we have independents, those who are wishing to contest to serve the society, because Supreme Court in 1998, P.V. Narasimha Rao versus others, it has given a landmark judgment stating all those elected representatives are also public servants, and provisions of 1988 Prevention of Corruption Act does apply to them also. And that is why we were bringing out that 17A is nothing but another masking to kill the spirit of 1998 judgment stating political public elected representatives as public servants, and they have to face the Prevention of Corruption Act. To nullify that, after Rafael, they brought this 2018 17A amendment. Why I'm stating all these things is absolute corruption blinds the best in the world. All those corruption, whether it is in the Sarpanch level or the Lok Sabha level, will kill the spirit of democracy. It will infringe the fundamental rights while looting all the resources which belong to every citizen. And every citizen is a constitutional authority by themselves, because we have submitted constitution to ourselves. That is the beauty of this great country. And today's unanimous decision of the Supreme Court striking down the electoral bonds should be celebrated as Democracy Day. Why? Because yesterday itself we have made a big show on Shah Rukh Khan, Qatar, and our uniformed 8 naval men, how they have been released. Such a big $78 billion deal. Why and in whose favor? Without any discussion on the floor of, it should be right from Panchayat to Parliament. Only after that policy decision should be taken. Not haphazard way, as if we are Rajas and we are all slaves. They are trying to take such decisions. Why? All those companies who are getting benefited illegally in a different way, they are funding these political parties and the elected representatives. That means this circle, vicious circle of political parties being funded by these corporates or whoever it is. I am not here to judge. There are wonderful people, wonderful corporates who believe in non-corrupt activities and patriotism. We salute such type of people. But what about others? Why government did not want to disclose the information on electoral bonds? That is ridiculous. Now, today even opposition is trying to celebrate what the hell opposition was doing all the while. We were questioning the opposition also. Opposition is not doing its duties properly. It is running away from the parliament. And any on issue, it has no consistency. Even electoral bonds, even UP Congress too had its own share, like Mamata Banerjee and regional parties like DMK, BRS, TRS, They had so much of money. From where did they get money? Why these corporate companies or those industrialists are funding these political parties? And we have seen Kaleshwaram corruption, ATM, Modi and Amit Shah said, and Palamuru Rangareddy lift irrigation scheme, Bharat heavy electrical limit, there also pumps and motors, biggest scam. Modi keeps quiet, BHL keeps quiet. It is there in the Supreme Court. As and when the case happens, these fellows go and pump money. That is why the Delhi hierarchy is also keeping quiet. That is our money, looted, and they are spending it in elections to buy the election votes of the innocent citizens or voters, to entice them. And with the same money, they are trying to dictate the systems. That is very bad. That is why every system will come under their control with this ill-gotten money. That is the reason why this day, 15th February 2024, DRTSPR channels, which has been championing the cause of democracy and free and fair election, this striking down of electoral bonds is the biggest victory for every Democrat and all those viewers and all those wonderful guests who have been appearing on DRTSPR channels. That is why I term this day as 15th February 2024 as Democracy Day. ये लोकतंत्र दिवस है क्योंकि जिस सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने ये पार खारिज कर दिया है इलेक्टोरल बॉन्ड्स, पैसे कौन दे रहा, कौन सी पार्टी को दे रहा, हमको कोई समाचार नहीं, और सरकार समाचार देना ही नहीं चाहती. और इलेक्शन कमीशन ऑफ इंडिया नींद में है. इलेक्शन कमीशन ऑफ इंडिया इन स्लीपिंग मोड. So many complaints, so many IDs, these fellows, they are not acting. And I'm sorry to say, because Election Commission of India should be independent for people participatory constitutional democracy. And if people want to breathe freedom, have their rights in a progressive way, along with the resources to be judiciously utilized, it should be Election Commission of India conducting elections in a free and fair way. Election Commission of India also should take the blame. And still the appointments issue, yesterday Supreme Court did not come forward. I only hope it will take a call on the appointment. It is nothing but selection by the Prime Minister, Cabinet Minister and opposition leader. That also should find the scrutiny of Supreme Court. And we hope a judgment will come in favor of India. I said, मेरा भारत महान. आज का दिन अच्छे दिन, क्योंकि जो भ्रष्टाचार करने वाले हैं, जिस तरह वो पैसे कमाते हैं, उसी पैसे से राजनीतिक दल और हमारे जो हम उनको जिताते हैं, उनके प्रतिनिधि, इन सबको ये पैसे के द्वारा चुनाव लड़ने की एक बड़ी साजिश ही है इलेक्टोरल बॉन्ड. आज ने सुप्रीम कोर्ट पारित कर दिया. इसीलिए हम बोलते हैं कि आज ये लोकतंत्र का दिवस 15 ఫిబ్రవరి 2024. ఇది ఒక పెద్ద ప్రజాస్వామిక మనం యుద్ధంలో ఈరోజు గెలిచాం. 15 ఫిబ్రవరి 2024 ఎలక్టరల్ బాండ్స్ అని ఆ ఏ కార్పొరేట్ కంపెనీ ఎవరు ఎందుకు ఇస్తున్నారు, ఎంత ఇస్తున్నారు, ఏ పార్టీ కానీ తెలిసే సమాచారం ప్రజలకు సామాన్యులుగా మనం రాజ్యాంగ వ్యవస్థ, ఓటర్లం మనమే, పౌరులం మనమే, మనకు సమాచారం ఇవ్వదని కేంద్ర ప్రభుత్వం ఒక చట్టం తీసుకొస్తే అది అపహాస్యం చేయడం ప్రజాస్వామ్యాన్ని. మనకి ఎట్లా ఇవ్వరండి? ఎవరు ప్రధానమంత్రి నుంచి ముఖ్యమంత్రి మన సేవకులు. సుప్రీంకోర్టు 1998లోనే మనకు క్లియర్గా చెప్పింది పివి నరసింహారావు కేసులో. అందుగురించి 17A కూడా ఎంత ప్రమాదకరమని డిఆర్టీఎస్పీఆర్ ఛానల్స్ మనం ఇంప్లీడ్ కూడా అయ్యానని పర్సనల్గా. సో ఇవన్నీ కూడా అవినీతిని పెంపొందించేటువంటి ఎలక్ట్రల్ బాండ్స్. ఈ అవినీతి పరులకు డబ్బులు ఎక్కడి నుంచి వస్తూ ఉన్నాయి? ఈ కార్పొరేట్ కంపెనీలు. మచ్చకు బీఆర్ఎస్ పార్టీ, టీఆర్ఎస్ పార్టీ, డిఎంకేకు ఎక్కువ డబ్బులు, అదేవిధంగా బీజేపీకి ఎక్కువ డబ్బులు. కాంగ్రెస్ కూడా తప్పిదమే. ఎందుకు పోరాడలేదు మొదటి నుంచి? అన్ని కోట్లే చేయాలంటే మనకున్న ఈ రాజకీయ పార్టీలు దేనికోసం? అందుగురించే ఈ 15 ఫిబ్రవరి 2024 ఇది ఒక ప్రజాస్వామ్య దినంగా మనము టీఆర్టీఎస్పీఆర్ ఛానల్స్ దీన్ని ముందుకు తీసుకుపోవడానికి ప్రయత్నం చేస్తూ ఉంది. ప్రతి ఒక్క పౌరుడు, పౌరురాలు కూడా దీన్ని హర్షిస్తారు. తెలుసుకోవాలా మనం ఓటేసే ముందు ఎవరికి వేస్తున్నాం, ఏ పార్టీకి వేస్తున్నాం, ఏ ప్రతినిధికి వేస్తున్నాం, ఎందుకోసం వేస్తున్నాం, ఈ పార్టీ ఖర్చు పెట్టి డబ్బు ఎక్కడి నుంచి వస్తుంది. అదేవిధంగా సుప్రీంకోర్టు కూడా ఎన్నికల కమిషన్పై నిబంధనలపై కూడా తీసుకురావాలి. విపరీతంగా వ్యయాన్ని పెంచారు. అసెంబ్లీ ఎన్నికలు కానీ, లోక్సభ ఎన్నికలు కానీ, కింది లెవెల్ నుంచి పై వరకు ఆ డబ్బు ఎక్కడి నుంచి సామాన్యుడు ఎన్నికల్లో పోటీ చేయగలగా? इतना बढ़ा चुके हैं हमारे चुनाव की जो ये है, सरपंच से लेके एमपी तक. कहाँ से आम आदमी पैसा लाएगा अगर उसको चुनाव में खड़े होने की अगर स्थिति या सोच भी नहीं सकता? इस तरह की माहौल, they have created such a horrible atmosphere, increasing the expenses to be spent for elections right from Sarpanch to Lok Sabha MP. That has to be curtailed. And if this corruption, अगर इस तरह की भ्रष्टाचार, इस तरह की ఈ విధమైన అవినీతిని, if this can be controlled, believe me, democracy will survive. लोकतंत्र हमारे देश में बरकरार रहेगा, ప్రజాస్వామ్యం వర్ధిల్లుతుంది ఈ అవినీతిని గాన ప్రాలదొలితే. So I'm trying to show you some comments across, and again I salute Supreme Court and all those wonderful judges. They have saviors of democracy, free and fair election, which is the basic structure of the constitution. We say free and fair election. Every party and including independent should have equal opportunities, whether it is in terms of expenses or whether in terms of the time and all those resources. Only then we say it is a free and fair election, and voter without any prejudice can elect his preference through those electoral ballots. So ballot paper also we are fighting against EVM. That also we'll see how. I don't want to complicate, but a great day. Let us celebrate this wonderful day. Some and just trying to this is what electoral bonds judgment directions by Supreme Court. SBI should immediately stop issuing electoral bonds. This SBI has become a corporate entity. We don't get loans, and we don't know how and when they will stop all the cards also. SBI should immediately stop issuing electoral bonds, and they should be seriously investigated. SBI should furnish details of the political parties that received electoral bonds and all the parties received to Election Commission by March 6th. I wish every citizen will understand and will write to Election Commission of India. They and write that they should make it public by March 6th. EC should publish such details on its website by March 13th. Political parties should thereafter refund electoral bonds not encashed to the purchaser's account. That is wonderful judgment. So these are very important and fundamental for the survival of democracy. Then we'll go to their analysis also.
Well, we are live on the electoral bonds case judgment. The Supreme Court of India today delivered a 5-judge constitution bench of the Supreme Court today delivered perhaps one of the most important judgments ever since the year 2024 began. Well, electoral bonds has been a subject matter of, great debate, great curiosity, a great controversy in the Indian political scenario ever since it was introduced way back in 2015. And, the then Union Finance Minister Arun Jaitley, when he had proposed the bond scheme in the floor of the House, he had, led down an entire trajectory as to why the electoral bond scheme is being introduced. Well, I would wait for a few of our friends to join in before I get into the nitty-gritties of the judgment. We were there, Bar and Bench was tweeting live the judgment about the electoral bonds case. The Supreme Court of India today has struck down the electoral bond scheme. A 5-judge constitution bench of the Supreme Court headed by the Chief Justice of India, D.Y. Chandrachud, struck down the electoral bond scheme. Justice Sanjeev Khanna and CJI D.Y. Chandrachud had penned the 2 judgments in this case. Chief Justice of India D.Y. Chandrachud has actually authored the main judgment on behalf of 3 other judges, whereas Justice Sanjeev Khanna had penned a separate judgment concurring with that of Justice D.Y. Chandrachud. Both of the judges had adopted the double proportionality test to come to this basic conclusion that the electoral bond scheme is indeed a violative of Article 19(1)(a) of the Indian Constitution and also Article 14 of the Indian Constitution. Before we start this entire live about what happened in the judgment, how it went about, etc., it's probably imperative that we discuss a little bit of background as to how the case came to the court, what happened in the court, and how we reached where we are in today's scenario. So basically, when this particular case came to light in the Supreme Court of India, it was introduced, and within a week of the electoral bond scheme being introduced in the Indian Parliament and being passed and being put into effect, it was challenged in the Supreme Court of India. So you can understand the amount of gap of time that has lapsed since the passage of the electoral bond scheme. So basically, I'll start with the scheme. In January 2018, the scheme was challenged by a number of parties, including the Communist Party of India, Association for Democratic Reforms, etc. The case was heard by a 5-judge constitution bench of the Supreme Court led by the CJI D.Y. Chandrachud, for over about 3 days from October 31st to November 2nd this year itself. The main protagonists in this entire hearing were Advocate Prashant Bhushan and Senior Advocate Kapil Sibal. So these two lawyers actually helmed the entire force of the petitioners in the court. So Advocate Prashant Bhushan, who represented a Common Cause and ADR in the Supreme Court, basically stated that the financial statements of companies are available in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs website, which could theoretically allow someone to glean over the donations, the source of these donations, etc. But even then, you and me as citizens of India would never come to know about what is the exact source of the electoral bond scheme. Now, the interesting part is the person who only knows amongst all of us as to who is contributing to the electoral bond scheme was the State Bank of India. Now, the entire contention was, since State Bank of India is more or less, a bank which is run by the government of the day, it's a nationalized bank. So, in a way, the details of these, the people who are adopting to the route of electoral bonds is known to the SBI, and in a way is known to the government of India as well. So, the court has actually founded a very interesting proposition of law called, the political affiliation theory. The court has gone into this basic thing of political affiliation theory to understand how a citizen could have his own political affiliation or a political leaning in a particular case. And when a citizen is actually having that kind of an affiliation or ideology, what curbs can be put on that particular citizen if the government of the day, whether it's BJP, Congress, anyone, if they come to know about such ideological leanings or political affiliations of a particular citizen of the country, then what kind of curbs can happen? In fact, a CJI D.Y. Chandrachud led bench has also gone into details about how a citizen can be subjected to trolling, can be subjected to unwarranted restrictions by the government of the day, to social media surveillance, to IT surveillance, if they come to know about certain political funding. So suppose I, as a person A, today give around 100 crores to Congress, then, and if the government of the day comes to know about it through SBI, then just imagine the kind of surveillance I'll be put through. And that is what strikes at the heart of the transparency of political funding. So that is what I believe is the crucial take in this entire judgment, because the judgment essentially relies on the right to information of a voter to make an informed choice. Now, does a voter have a right to information about political funding to make an informed choice? Well, after today's Supreme Court judgment, yes, you have the right to know about what kind of funding a political party is receiving, because you and me, as an informed voter of today's India, can only decide whom would you want to vote for after understanding the kind of funding that the party is receiving and from whom. There are big corporations, big conglomerates, etc., who are donating hundreds and thousands of crores to these, political parties. It could be anyone. Now, it could be either a show of support or a quid pro quo. So the judgment has actually gone into the aspect of what is a show of support and what is quid pro quo. Now, you and me, I hope if my non-lawyer friends are here, they would not understand probably what is quid pro quo. Quid pro quo is like, you do something in return for what I'm doing for you. So suppose I'm giving you 50 grand or 50 crores to your bank account through electoral bonds. It means that the next highway project that you are going to land in Malegaon or somewhere is going to come to my company. So that is the entire aspect of quid pro quo which is happening through the electoral bond scheme, and the government and the Supreme Court of India has tried to curb that today. I'll just read some brief conclusions which the Supreme Court comes to today in this entire thing is that SBI should immediately, stop issuing electoral bonds. So SBI was the only person who was issuing electoral bonds. So after today's judgment, SBI cannot issue electoral bonds anymore. SBI should also furnish the details of all the political parties till now who has received electoral bonds, the particulars received, the denominations received, etc., by a certain period in March, and thereafter that's March 6. And by March 13, when Election Commission of India receives all of these data from the State Bank of India, they have to publish it on their official website for public consumption. So when you are putting it up on the official website for public consumption, that is when the Supreme Court is making a statement that all of these data concerning political funding, concerning electoral bonds, were always meant to be in the public realm. It was always meant to be with the public, in the public knowledge and in the public domain. So there is no business of sealed cover, not putting out or only putting it on the floor of the house, etc. It has to be on the official website so that you and me, when we go in the month of May to exercise our right to vote in the coming Lok Sabha elections also, we could exercise this particular choice of knowing which political party has received what kind of funding from, what is the amount of funding that they have received, and all the unencashed amounts, and all the electoral bonds which have not been encashed till now, have to be returned by the political parties to the people who have given those electoral bonds. So that is also a very significant verdict. Why I stayed away from telling you about the nitty-gritties of the verdict as to which section has been held to be unconstitutional, which section has not been held to be unconstitutional. It is because, let me give you a brief overview of the three acts which were involved. The three acts were the Representation of People's Act, the Income Tax Act, the Finance Act 2015, and the Electoral Bond Scheme, of course. So all of these three acts had made certain corollary provisions, amendments, so that the Electoral Bond Scheme could be given effect to. Right? So 21C of the Representations of People Act, followed by 182(3) of the Companies Act, followed by some section of the IT Act. So all of these amendments woven together had given birth to the Electoral Bond Scheme. So when the Electoral Bond Scheme's birth itself has been declared to be invalid or illegal or unconstitutional or violative of 19(1)(a) of the Indian Constitution in Article 14, then all the factors which are involved in that entire process of giving birth to electoral bonds are also OTOs and illegal in law. So all the amendments which were made were also held to be unconstitutional, and that is why there have been a lot of judgments by the Supreme Court wherein the Supreme Court came to a conclusion that okay, this particular thing is unconstitutional. However, this route which was done was not unconstitutional, or this amendment which was done which was not unconstitutional. But after a long time, we are seeing a judgment from the Supreme Court of India of this much political importance and significance, where the entire trajectory, entire line of amendments which were made to give birth to the Electoral Bond Scheme have been struck down. So that was the entire gist of the case. What happens thereafter is the ball shifts to the court of course, the State Bank of India. The State Bank of India has to now, issue all the details to the Election Commission of India, and Election Commission of India publishes it on the website. Now, let me give you some information which is probably not from the judgment, but from what we learn from our reporting experience. What you can expect is in the next 10 to 12 days, you can expect a review petition in the Supreme Court against this particular judgment. A review petition seeking a review because the deadline which the Government of India which the Supreme Court of India has set in this case is March 6 for the SBI to give to Election Commission of India. So if anything has to happen in the court in the form of a review, has to happen before that. So there we can expect a review petition, of course, followed by a dismissal of a review petition, which may happen, which we see in most of the cases. A dismissal happens or an open hearing happens. If a dismissal happens, then the next stage is a curative. And if a curative petition is dismissed as well, then perhaps there is no other chance but to comply with the Supreme Court order. However, there may be questions as to, what if Supreme Court what if the Government of India brings in a new legislation? What if the Government of India brings in a new scheme? Of course, that is a way out. If the Government of India brings in a scheme which is a less restrictive means than the Electoral Bond Scheme, then of course that can see the day of the light of the day. Because I'll tell you what happened in the judgment today was that the Supreme Court of India noted that the Electoral Bond Scheme was not the least restrictive means to adopt to curb the inflow of black money or to maintain confidentiality in the aspect of political funding. So the Supreme Court of India actually noted that you have to adopt the least restrictive measure. The least restrictive measure could be the electoral trust. The least restrictive measure could be through a banking financial institutions where the details are known to some people, or it could be made public through an RTI, etc., etc. So those could be the least restrictive measures. But in electoral bond scheme, what was the most sad part is that the entire process is so under a black door that you probably don't know anything about it. Right? Who is contributing? Why are they contributing? No RTIs, nothing could to be filed, nothing you would know ever. And the only person who knows about the entire process is the bank, which is a nationalized bank, whose officers will obviously have the details of who have given those electoral bonds and how the government of the day would get access to all the data and what could lead to an unwanted social surveillance or curbs on an individuals who probably don't favor or don't find favor with the government of the day. Right? So that was the entire gist. So the least restrictive measure test is open for the government of India. The government of India can bring in a new policy. It could be named as James Bond policy, or for all we know, but in that policy, they have to adopt the least restrictive test. Right? So the least restrictive test, if they follow, then before March 6, even if you give the details of electoral bond, I don't care, because I have a new scheme in place in which I could make some tweaks, still maintain my authority over the political funding part, but also I go with what Supreme Court has said, that it's a least restrictive measure. And what also happens is that you prolong the judicial process again. Right. So Justice D.Y. Chandrachud is set to retire this year in November. Right. So even if you bring in a new, so all of this that I'm saying are from my own legal analysis. Right. It's not in the judgment. I've drifted a little bit apart because I'm seeing a lot of questions on what happens now. Right. What happens? कोई नया law आ जाएगा government का law इसमें. It's not about the law. It's about क्या आएगा. What could be brought forth. So what could be brought forth is a new scheme which perhaps satisfies the test of being a least restrictive means to curb black money, right? So you could again see the finance minister making a speech in the parliament and bringing a new scheme, making some amendments to the Finance Act, and probably a new scheme altogether which is satisfying the conditions set out by the Supreme Court, the double proportionality test, etc., which the Supreme Court has gone in today, right? So that is a way out, or that is a way by which the government of the day.
Yeah. So the way out also is being clearly told, but I only hope RSS should come to the rescue of the country. Why there is no transparency and accountability? ये छुप छुपा के क्यों करनी चाहिए? So I only hope sincerely they would immediately come to the rescue of India. I've already shown you this, and let me go to the other aspect. Many have sent me, so many things have been. Supreme Court strikes down electoral bond scheme as unconstitutional. It is from the own Supreme Court website I've gathered. The Supreme Court on Thursday struck down the electoral bond scheme that allows anonymous donations to political parties. Why anonymous, Mr. Modi and RSS? I'm asking you, why anonymous? Why don't you make it public? If they are not indulging in corrupt practices, if they are not having quid pro quo, as being explained, why don't you expose it? A 5-judge constitutional bench of Chief Justice of India, D.Y. Chandrachud, CJI, and Justices Sanjeev Khanna, B.R. Gawai, J.B. Pardiwala, and Manoj Mishra unanimously quashed the scheme, as well as amendments made to the Income Tax Act and the Representation of People Act, which had made the donations anonymous. The court held that the electoral bond scheme, due to its anonymous nature, is violative of right to information and thus hits free speech and expression under Article 19(1)(a) of the Constitution. Electoral bond scheme proviso to Section 29(1)(c) as amended by Section 139 of Income Tax Act and Section 13(b) as amended by Finance Act 2017 is violative of Article 19(1)(a), the judgment said. The court ordered that the issuing bank of electoral bonds, that is State Bank of India, should issue details of political parties which received electoral bonds and all the particulars received and submit them to the Election Commission of India by March 6th. Political parties should thereafter refund the electoral bonds amount to the purchaser's account, the court ordered. There were two judgments, one authored by CJI D.Y. Chandrachud and the other by Justice Sanjeev Khanna, both concurring. The court held that the scheme will help the party in power to gain advantage. This is what we are saying. It is not a free and fair election. you are going to help one party, as I've been complaining right from 2018. All of a sudden, KCR comes from Delhi after speaking to Election Commission of India on September 5th through press conference. He goes for dissolution of assembly, announcing 101 candidates. Before that, Telangana's Chief Electoral Officer Rajat Kumar issues September 1 notification, according which the natural franchises, adult franchises would go by, and January 1st or February 2019, electoral rolls would have been out, elections should have been held in 2019. But after this statement, press conference by KCR on September 5th, 2018, they had to prepone with another September 9th. This is absolutely violative. Same Rajat Kumar should be facing prosecution. And those election commissions of that day have received election complaint IDs more than 18 or 19, but still today, no action. That is why we say this is not a free and fair election. The court held that the scheme will help the party in power to gain advantage. This is what I'm saying. Economic inequality leads to differing level of political engagements. This is what, again, if one party is getting 100 crores, the other party gets only 1 crore. And what about independents? If they are not getting anything, that is the economic inequality leads to differing levels of political engagement. They can reach, they can interact, they can entice. They have so many methods if you have more money. And if the money is equally distributed amongst the political parties as well as those independents, then we call free and fair election. The voter will have a choice, a rightful choice. Access to information leads to influencing the policy making and also leading to quid pro quo arrangements may also help a party by the party in power. This is what has helped BRS. That's what we have been complaining. That Kaleshwaram, Palamur Rangareddy lift irrigation, Dharani, why BJP central government is keeping quiet in spite of this terming it as ATM anytime money for KCR, Kaleshwaram anytime money, Polavaram for Chandrababu Naidu. This is what quid pro quo is all about. The court also held that electoral bond scheme cannot be justified by saying that it will help curb black money in politics. It is going to increase black money because you are not giving any information to the voter and the citizen. That is nonsense. Case title: Association for Democratic Reforms and ANR versus Union of India Cabinet Secretary and others. So this is what the title: Association for Democratic Reforms. God bless you. Breaking. See, Supreme Court strikes down. These are all headlines which I'm trying to play down. Many have. Right. A great day. Supreme Court strike down. See, these are all money, illegal money. I would say, if it is not illegal, why government is not trying to disclose? And Congress is trying to champion, trying to show. 2018, 210 crores. The BJP is the single biggest beneficiary of electoral bond donation. This we have shown through Ravichandran Swaminathanji in our own shows, how the ruling party is going to get so much of money, and through SBI, it will come to know who is going to fund opposition parties, and through ED or CBI, how they can trail and see that the opposition parties or those candidates independent will never get any amount. When such is the case, is it a free and fair election? 2019, 1,450 crores. 2020, 2,515 crores. 2021, 22.38 crores. 2023, 1,294 crores. Total 6,564 crores. And what about you, Congress party? How much you have received over and above other small parties, communist parties, or NCP, Mamata Banerjee's TMC, or in the other states? BRS is getting more money, TRS, DMK is getting more money. From where and how they are getting? That is a $1 million question. That is why this Supreme Court decision striking down is very fundamental to the survival of people participatory constitutional democracy and the right of the voter, his choice to vote in a free and fair way. Yeah, these are all I think I have shown you. Wire also widely published. This strike downs electoral bond scheme. Reveal donors details. After demonetization, we expected income tax reforms. Up till 12 lakhs, no slab. After that, only 2 or 3 slabs, so that it would have been very transparent. It would have removed corruption, and then followed by electoral reforms, state-run elections, so that anyone can compete without this money aspect coming into play in the elections. Donations will never come after demonetization if they have followed DRTSPR channel's advice of income tax reforms, followed by electoral reforms that would have made democracy to survive in a better way. Transparency and accountability and absolute freedom would have been. Everyone would have been served with that. So this is what bar and bench we have seen. This already we have seen. Thanks to bar and bench for making it. Yeah, again, we have come to the same. Yes. Trying to close it down now.
Matters because it works even for those who don't believe in it. That is why the Constitution matters, because it works even for those who don't believe in it. That is why the Constitution matters, because it works even for those who don't believe in it.
The Constitution works even for those who don't believe it. That is the beauty of the Constitution: equijustice, equality in everything, and the fundamental 19(1)(a) freedom of expression, through which the voter judiciously uses his vote to elect his representative or political party if he is got some information. It is his right to know the information. 19(1)(a) is, we are all about journalism, and that is how we are disseminating information to you, so that you decide. You are the constitutional authority. Once you have information in your hands, you are the Raja, Maharaja, and you are the Constitution. So we are providing all information, DRTSPR channels, which has been championing the cause of democracy, free and fair elections. Electoral bonds have gone, and the Election Commission of India appointments to just to take it very seriously. And all those complaints with Election Commission of India right from 2018, I hope they will also find scrutiny now. The people, the constitutional authorities, voters are the victors in this great judgment on striking down of electoral bonds, and those who still feel the Constitution is the best. This is the best way we live with the constitutional spirit. That is why we say the basic structure of Constitution, free and fair election, is very fundamental to the survival of India as a people participatory constitutional democracy. To support DRTSPR channels, Citizens DRTSPR channel and Environment People DRTSPR channels, they are all in larger public interest. Anyone can differ with us. You can call me on 94404-65339. You can connect, we can discuss, debate, and differ, but it should be as per rule of law, Constitution, invoking Evidential Act. Because tagline is simple: no enmity against individuals, nor animosity against any parties or organizations. We want India to survive. I would definitely say, Mera Bharat Mahan. Before I say Jai Hind, my mobile number is 94404653339, to which Google Pay and Phone Pay are attached, and you can support, subscribe DRTSPR channels, Citizens DRTSPR channel, and Environment People DRTSPR channels. They are all in larger public interest only. Jai Hind.